What if the medicine you've been chasing isn't actually designed to solve the problem you care about most? If you're a pre-med, pre-PA, or early clinician, you have been told that the path is simple. Learn the guidelines, prescribe the treatment, and then move on to the next patient. But what happens when the treatment works and the patient still isn't better? Today's guest, Kerry Jenkins, is a PA who spent 25 years in dermatology before a single patient forced her to confront something that most clinicians quietly feel but rarely say out loud. If you have ever felt like medicine is moving too fast to actually heal people, this conversation might challenge everything you thought you knew about success in healthcare. In this episode, we unpack the question that no one is teaching you how to ask yet. This is Shadow Me Next with Kerry Jenkins.
Carrie of Whisper Health. The student who's listening, you are in for such a treat today. Carrie is absolutely amazing and really, truly motivated to make significant lasting impacts in healthcare across the board, but also has a specialty that's very near and dear and close to my heart. So thrilled to bring you Carrie today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashley. It's my absolute privilege to be here and to share this information today.
Amazing. So, Carrie, you are a PA, and you are also, describe your titles for us, because they are very, very interesting and something that a lot of us have been looking for recently.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm a PA, and I came out of school and jumped into the specialty of dermatology. So I practiced dermatology for 25 years. And, you know, my story is that I love my job, and you kind of get caught up in doing the day-to-day things. And I had one instance that really just opened my eyes, and that led me to an entirely different side of medicine. So I am an integrative and functional medicine practitioner, and in March I will be celebrating 8 years of owning my own practice, which is a huge, amazing celebration. And I have a general functional medicine practice where we treat all chronic illnesses, and I have a specialty in dermatology, and I also have a special focus in PCOS.
Incredible. Oh my gosh. First of all, Derm for 25 years, 8 years of owning your own practice. That's a lot of medicine that you have seen, and a lot of patients that you have really, truly impacted. And I would love to dive in to how those two practices really look different. But before we do that, you mentioned one instance in practice where, you know, kind of you saw the light and things started to shift for you. I think this is a really interesting story to talk to a lot of clinicians about, because I think for some clinicians, it's a slow boil, right? They start to feel things, but for others, it's a very interesting kind of one-time boom where they realize, hold on, you know, kind of tires on the road. Can you tell us a little bit about that moment?
I can, and I'll keep it the abbreviated version. I'm very blessed to have two amazing young ladies that I call my daughters. And when my youngest was 12 years old, she started having some belly complaints, and I really didn't know what was going on with her. And I kind of ignored her because I really didn't know what to do. And I knew that if I took her to the pediatrician, they'd do an amazing workup. The workup wasn't the problem. I just knew deep down in my soul that workup was not going to uncover what was going on for her. So I started doing what every patient does, and I started going down rabbit holes. I got on Google. I was listening to podcasts and watching, webinars, and I was reading books, and I just was in the community and Googling and researching, and this whole concept of integrative and functional medicine kept popping up. And when you Google functional medicine, and Wikipedia has a really nasty page on what functional medicine is. They pretty much call it voodoo and witchcraft. I read that, and it was very bristling to me. I was like, ooh, I don't want to be associated with that. I practice medicine. I was trained conventionally. I am a practicing, provider. So I really, I hesitated embracing that title and that language. And I will be very, transparent that my body whispered to me for a very long period of time. Like, it kept nudging me to just investigate further, be open, have an open mind. And just like in medicine, if your body starts whispering to you and you ignore it, it starts speaking to you. And if you ignore the speaking terms, then it starts yelling. And if you ignore that, then you're really in a whole hell bit of trouble. So I was getting nudged to, just keep an open mind, and I kept researching and learning. And I had one profound experience. It was a day in clinic, and it was my last patient of the day, and my medical assistant presented this patient to me. It was a 16-year-old African-American female who had just been diagnosed with lupus, and we were her very next stop. So I went in and sat down in front of this 16-year-old, and I sit on a little rolly stool, and I put my hands on her, and I introduced myself, and I said, "Tell me what's going on. Why are you here?" And she was with her aunt and her grandmother. Her mother was not able to attend the visit, and she said, "My aunt and my grandmother have lupus, and I was just diagnosed with lupus, and I really need you to explain to me how my diet affects my disease." And Ashley, it was like thunder struck in that visit room. I almost fell off my rolly stool. I turned around and looked at my medical assistant, because she knew what I had been going through. And and I looked at her, and I had a moment where I had to compose myself, because I was so really just shaken up. And I put my hands up and I said, "Okay, I have received, I hear you.
Yes.
I have received the message loud and clear." And I was very transparent with that 16-year-old. And I said to her, "Listen, I don't have the answer for you, but we will figure it out together." That was the beginning of my journey. And I drove 30 minutes home from clinic that day. I rolled the windows down. I had the radio off. And I just sat with myself, and it was kind of like the angel and the devil on my shoulder. "You can do this, Carrie. It's what your calling is. You're passionate about it. You're getting signals from the universe." And then the devil is sitting on the opposite shoulder, and it was the, absolute panic and the voice, like, "Who do you think you are? You can't open your own practice. You can't manage a practice. You've never been to business school. You don't know how to do that. Who do you think you are, trying to step outside your comfort zone and doing something like that?" And I will say, I struggled with that for a very long time, until the angel finally went out and shut the devil up, and I jumped off a cliff, and I said, "I'm either going to die trying, and I'm going to fail, but at least I will know that I tried, rather than not ever trying." And almost 8 years later, here we are.
I have goosebumps. I had major goosebumps when you described the question that patient asked you. I mean, how much louder and clearer could that calling have been? And, there's something really important here that I want to make sure that we hit on. And that is, sometimes we speak flippantly about shifting careers, and especially as PAs. Because what does every pre-PA student say? The reason is for them going into our profession, because I like the lateral mobility. I like the ability to move from one specialty to the next, happy, flowy, no problems, it's easy, etc. And what I want to impress on everybody, including myself, who has ever had that thought, is these are not easy changes. Systematically, yes, it's a little bit easier to make a shift. These are major, major decisions that we make. Number one, to shift from specialties, especially as a PA. Number two, to take on a whole new venture like you did, moving not only from into a totally different specialty, but also becoming a business owner, and likely changing the way that you practice entirely, which I do want to talk a little bit about. We'll describe days in your life, one versus the other. But again, before we move on too far, I do want to mention that it was your child that kind of started this journey into functional medicine. And I think it's so interesting, because as parents, I'm a parent, you're a parent. I've spoken to a number of clinicians who are also parents and integrative and functional medicine practitioners. And a lot of times it is their children who have some type of illness or disease that they are frustrated because they're not getting the answers. As clinicians, they're still not getting the answers that they want. And I think it's so important to realize that as clinicians, when we realize that something is not good enough for our children, if the medicine is not good enough for our kids, why is it good enough for my patients? It's kind of the question that we've started asking. And it just highlights the responsibility that we feel for our patients. And I think it highlights, thank God, it highlights the fact that we still feel so relationally drawn to our patients as well. So I just thank you so much for being so brave and so bold as to make that step after getting that nudge, 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 and then the big thunderbolt of understanding. It's incredible. Describe for me how life looks different for you from when you were a practicing derm PA for so long to now. Number one, being a business owner, of course, carries its own challenges. But outside of that, just clinically, what do those two? How did their lives look a little bit different?
That's a great question. So in dermatology, I was very privileged that I worked with the same practice for 25 years. And, I practiced medical dermatology and aesthetic cosmetic dermatology. So when I would go into clinic and do medical dermatology, I would see upwards of 50, 55 patients a day. I'd see 2 patients every 15 minutes. And take a 45-minute break for lunch. And we were expected to, that was the pace, and that's what we did. And it's all fine and dandy until it's not, and you get toasty and burnt out and aesthetic medicine was a little bit different, and I love and enjoy that. It's a completely different flavor. But that too began to bristle me in some aspects. I would have people that come in and just be like so upset that they have a wrinkle on their face, and I'm like, seriously, you have a wrinkle? Like there are, what? Anyway.
Yes, I agree.
So, that's what my life looked like, practicing conventionally. And now in my own private functional medicine practice, I see between 3 and 5 patients a day, excuse me, with maybe 1 to 2 consultations added on at the end of the day. A couple of days a week, I do consultations. So the patient load has drastically reduced. However, the mental gymnastics that is going on to provide care for the person sitting in front of me has quadrupled easily. It is a lot to take into account an entire person's, integrative and functional medicine is a systems biology approach. So as a dermatologist, I'm trained to evaluate the skin. The skin is not a self-individualized organ. It is tied into the immune system, to the gastrointestinal system, to the endocrine system, to the neurological system, the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal, gonadal, thyroid axis. Like, it is all intertwined. So I had to, because I came out of school and jumped into dermatology straight out of the gate, and I did not have family practice or internal medicine behind me and under my belt, I had to do a lot of learning to get up to speed, because rashes are a direct, rashes on the skin are a direct result of the inflammation that's harbored on the inside of the body, in the gut, and the liver's inability or inefficiency to clear toxins and immobilize and metabolize and get things out. So when I tell my patients, I'm an amateur immunologist, pulmonologist, gastroenterologist, psychologist, you name it, I'm it. And one thing that I learned very quickly out of the gate is I knew that I wanted to specialize in dermatology because that's my wheelhouse, right? But it took me years to become proficient in primary care. I know how to treat thyroid conditions. I know how, right? Like, you have to learn how to do all that to be able to treat skin or whatever your niche is. To be able to do that well, you have to know how to treat the whole person. So there was a huge learning curve, but I'm so grateful I went down that path and chose this option for sure.
I mean, it really shines a very bright light on what you told that one young patient in your clinic was, I don't have the answer for you, but we'll figure it out together. You understand the weight of that phrase now. We'll figure it out together. It's not just we'll figure it out together in the 1 or 2 hours that I have you in my office right now. It's you're going home, you're thinking about your patient, you're researching, you're reading, you're asking colleagues, you're doing the legwork. And how,
and that's the majority of it. Like the emotional, mental, educational piece of it, it's just huge. What I've learned, no portion of that was taught in PA school. And it is absolutely criminal. And I'm going to change that next. You know, I'm on a mission. I'm gonna, you know, rifle up the medical community. Like it's coming. Change is happening. Awareness is building. People are asking more, better questions. So the revolution is happening, and it just excites me so much to be able to be a part of it. But yes, it's the unbillable hours that I spend with each person's case, learning and figuring out how to put their puzzle pieces together, because every single person is an N of one.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, this brings me to an interesting question. It's something that is literally written in caps on your website. And that is, this is not for the person looking for the quick fix. And I kind of, it ties in a little bit about when you were talking about how people are asking more questions and they are doing their own research and they are looking for changes in healthcare. You know, it's juxtaposed between also us living in a very quick fix society right now. So maybe we could talk about how the culture has shifted over the last years when it comes to patient expectations. Tell me a little bit about that.
It's so very important to set those expectations up straight out of the gate. And I'm very transparent with all my people. The one thing that they will learn about me right away is I'm going to be honest and tell you straight like it is. There's no sugarcoating. There's no beating around the bush. If I don't know, I tell you I don't know. But setting that expectation, and I say this to every single person that has a consultation with me on the phone to find out, you know, if I am the right person for them to work with. I very clearly say this is not a quick fix. It is not like shutting off a light and you push the button and all of a sudden the light goes off and it's dark. We are rebuilding your body from a cellular origin. And that takes time. So I tell people, if this is something that you really believe in and you really want to do this, you have got to put on your patient hat. And I mean patience, like have patience. This is not an instant fix. This is not immediate, you know, symptom resolution. It takes time for your body to recalibrate and be able to function optimally. So I tell people, you know, if I'm dealing with an infant that has eczema or atopic dermatitis, it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks for your body to take in the nutrients that it needs, to put it into the cell, for the cell to be able to do what it needs to do with it. Then the skin will start to say, oh, okay, the immune system is happy, you know, the GI tract is happy, so now the skin can start to calm down, right? So I tell people, one of the first questions they ask is, Carrie, how long is it going to take for me to clear my kid's eczema? It could take anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months, depending on what we find. I don't know, but I'm going to tell you everything as we go along the way to let you know where we stand. You will never not know where we stand, but setting realistic expectation is important from the get-go.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad you started talking about some of those common diseases, because this is so interesting to me to think about, especially coming from my derm background as well. These things that we're treating, that you're treating in your clinic as well, they are very, very common. We're talking acne, we're talking PCOS, we're talking atopic derm. These are common diseases, and the therapies that I am giving them as a previous GYN PA and now current derm PA, they're very frustrating therapies for some people because it's med, and then they're still not better sometimes at the end.
Band-aid.
Yes.
Right? And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with meds. I'm not anti-medication. I am, however, anti-Band-Aid. If there is a chronic condition, PCOS, acne, rosacea, psoriasis, atopic dermatitis, you name it, a chronic condition, slapping a Band-Aid on it is not the answer. Identifying the underlying cause of what's driving the acne, what's driving the psoriasis, why does the baby have eczema at 3 months old? Why? Answering those questions, giving the body what it needs taking away what it doesn't want or need or like, that's when magic is able to happen.
So let's talk to the student who's listening, who's literally standing up, clapping right now and screaming at the top of their lungs, yes, this is what I want to do. This is the medicine that I want to practice. You started as a PA. Do you still have your PA license?
I do.
Yeah. So you started as a PA. You are still a PA. You went to PA school. You worked as a PA for so many years and then became an integrative and functional medicine practitioner. I've talked to numerous MDs who have kind of pursued a similar route. To this student who's thinking, well, this second part is what I want to do. How would you counsel them on, if they even need to pursue conventional medicine and conventional medical education first, or can they just dive right into integrative and functional medical education? What do you think there?
So my personal humble opinion is practice primary care, practice general internal medicine, practice pediatrics if kids are your jam. Do what speaks to you, what lights you up, but get a couple of years of conventional medicine under your belt. That will serve you so much benefit for your future. You can learn and take courses and dabble and learn about nutrition and all integrative and functional things while you're practicing conventional medicine. But you need to have that solid foundation so that you understand when not to do integrative and functional medicine, when is it a diagnosis where we really need to rule out cancer, we need to be seeing the oncologist to make sure that all our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted before we do the woo-woo stuff, right? And I don't say that lightly. So integrative and functional medicine is founded in, the 4 pillars of health: movement, exercise, diet, nutrition, good healthy sleep, managing stress. Those are the foundations of health, but we need to know when that's not what needs to be done and when to send to a conventional medical practitioner to rule out the nasty, ugly diagnoses. And if you don't have that foundational medical education as a platform from which to grow, God forbid you miss something, right? So getting that basic, that general medicine experience is so worthwhile. Do internal medicine, do primary care, do general pediatrics for a couple of years, and then go branch out. And there are people here willing, waiting to support you on your journey.
It's incredible. And you can do that. You can do that as a nurse. You can do that as a PA. You can do that as a nurse practitioner. You can do that as an MD or a DO. Like you said, find what speaks to you. And this is it makes me giggle every time I have these conversations because inevitably I hear in the back of my mind right now, the student, the sophomore in college saying, but Ashley, I already feel so far behind. I already feel so far. You are just starting this journey, and it is not going to end 6 years after you graduate high school.
It will never end. I am 50 years old and I'm on my 3rd career. It's okay to have multiple iterations of yourself. It's called growth. And if you're not growing, you're dead. So grow and prosper.
You're absolutely right. Okay, let's talk to our clinicians. Let's talk to our clinicians for a second because, we just spoke with our students, but actually, let me tell you a story. So yesterday in clinic, I saw a patient that I had been seeing for a very long time. She has what they assumed was vascular issues in her legs, which were basically destroying her skin, right? Her legs kept swelling and they were, they looked raw and just so painful. She couldn't walk anymore. Now she has a motorized scooter. And they just kept telling her that she had poor hygiene and was not taking care of herself and was overweight. Okay. Well, that's a possibility. So I saw her a number of months ago and I evaluated her and I said, I don't think this is what you have. I actually think you have psoriasis. So have you ever heard of that? And she had heard of it. She had looked it up herself and she agreed. So, during the course of our discussion, I said, well, would you be open to a biopsy? Let's confirm my suspicions. We biopsied it. Turns out it was psoriasis. So she has been, we've been treating her with a really heavy duty medicine for psoriasis and she is improving. She's just not completely better. And she came to me yesterday and she said, Ashley, don't be mad at me. And I love hearing that in my clinic because it means your patient is about to open up to you about something that really matters to them, right? So of course I'm not going to be mad. I get so excited. And she said, don't be mad at me. I looked online, Google, AI, ChatGPT, etc. I looked online and it recommended that I start using this certain type of water on my legs. I think she said thermal water. Regardless, what she was describing was basically a way that she had started to change the way that she was caring for her body. The water was one thing. She changed her diet up was second. She actually started getting up and moving more, even though her legs hurt. She was basically describing what I would have told her as an integrative and functional medicine practitioner, right? I was excited about this because I have talked to so many people who work in this field of medicine, and I'm so grateful for it. And I am not an integrative and functional medicine practitioner. So when my patients start doing this on their own, I'm thrilled. They're doing it by themselves. What would you tell the clinician who then sits there and eye rolls at their patients and calls it, as Wikipedia does, voodoo or witchcraft? At what point do we need to start considering this is a reasonable approach for some of these patients?
I love that you asked that question because here's my answer. And I say this with utmost humility. You don't know what you don't know until you do know. And I'm going to tell every single human listening to this podcast, and I hope it goes viral and millions of people hear this. There is so much that we don't know. And conventional medicine is amazing at acute crisis triage medicine, but they are failing miserably at chronic disease. And that's what's bringing down our healthcare system. And we as medical providers are not trained in nutrition, and we're not trained in so many other, topics that are so important, the way that a naturopath would be educated, the way that a Chinese medical doctor would be educated. There's so much that we don't know when we have our conventional lens medical goggles on and our way is the only way and the best way. That is ignorance. Take those goggles off. Realize there's so much more out there. There's so many more healing modalities that are out there that have thousands of years of practice behind them. Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, herbal medicine. I mean, don't be that person. Don't be that clinician, please.
The evidence is there. And I love what you said about how we are failing at chronic disease. And I do think chronic disease, psoriasis, acne, eczema, we've mentioned a bunch of them, hidradenitis suppurativa, vitiligo, lupus. We've talked about chronic disease this whole episode, right? And those are the things that get so frustrating as clinicians. We are healers. We'd like to believe that we are healers at heart, but yet these chronic diseases, we are not beating them a lot of the time. And that is the most frustrating thing. Let's actually shift gears but on the same page, talk about PCOS. PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it affects people with ovaries. And it does not just affect their ovaries. This is something that you've created a fantastic platform for called whisperingwisdom.com. Tell us a little bit about this journey. This is just a great example of one of the chronic diseases that we've talked about today.
Yeah. So PCOS is crazy underdiagnosed. Underdiagnosed. It is the number one cause of infertility in this great nation that we live in. And it is underdiagnosed. Our young women are not ovulating regularly, and that is leading to chronic infertility. So the way that I got into the PCOS space is, as a dermatology practitioner, I was having these young adult females coming into the practice that had acne, and they didn't just have 1 or 2 or 5 inflammatory papules. They had cystic nodular acne along their jawline, across their neck. They were growing a mustache and a beard, and they had hair on their chest. So I was treating their acne in the medical clinic. I was lasering the hair on their face in the cosmetic clinic. And these women, their self-esteem was absolutely tanked. They had, they were depressed. They were not going out with their friends. They were not engaging in society. They were not being social. They were shutting themselves up in their room. They were not pursuing education. And I started having conversations with these young women, and I would say, whoever you see in the GYN space, your nurse practitioner, your PA, whoever, have they done any labs? Have you had an ultrasound of your ovaries? Is there any way, do you have a family history of PCOS? Have you ever heard of it? Do you know what it is? And they would look at me like a deer in the headlights. What are you talking about? Okay. So like you mentioned, PCOS is another chronic condition, and your ovaries are responding to the metabolic dysfunction that is happening in your body. And what is driving that metabolic dysfunction? Our poor nutrition. People are eating the SAD diet. The standard American diet is SAD, and it doesn't provide nutrients. We are our livers are becoming fatty. We are insulin resistant. We are building cardiovascular disease in 17, 18, 19-year-old girls. And that is the root cause of PCOS. So I would ask them, what is your gynecologist or the practitioner you're seeing doing for you?
You mentioned so many Band-Aids, and you're right. I mean, that really ultimately, many times, that is what it is. And you do kind of look like that you're clairvoyant when you tell people to go in and get an ultrasound of their ovaries. There's probably something on them, and they go in and they get ultrasounds of their ovaries, and lo and behold, there is something on them, right? Whisperingwisdom.com. Guys, this is where you need to head to check out this incredible platform that she has created. Go to her website, check it out. And then if you guys have fallen in love with Carrie as much as I have, please visit her website, whisper-health.com. Absolutely incredible resources there that she has created that are really meant for everybody, student, patient, clinician alike. Thank you so much for joining us today. You are amazing and you are motivated. And I am just so grateful that you have stepped into this space where we desperately need fast, loud talkers to, like you said, begin to spur change and ignite a revolution, and how we are finally not just caring for patients, but healing patients.
Amen. I love that. For everything you do and for providing the platform for us to get the word out. There's so much gratitude for what you do, Ashley.
I appreciate it.